Well, now I have the incredible privilege of being joined by author Andy Gabruch to talk about his new book, Infobesity. It's a practical guide on digital habits and how we can navigate them as followers of Jesus Christ. And so, Andy, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, I really do love this book. And I think it's something that we often don't talk about, but we need to. We live in a world obsessed with information and we have information overload. And so, why did you write this book? And why do you think it's so important for kids and parents and pastors?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill. Simply put, we realized as a youth pastor back in the early days of technology, digital technology coming out around 2008, 2010, that information wasn't leading people to truth.
Mm,
And so even followers of Jesus that had healthy faith practices didn't necessarily line up to have healthy digital practices. And there seemed to be a gap. And so we wanted to build discipleship processes of how to shrink that gap so that followers of Jesus wouldn't be distracted or perhaps mildly addicted to the digital ethos that's out there. And so we call it infobesity because infobesity simply means information overload from digital technologies.
yeah, I love that. And what I love in your book is you identify how the church has in the past really leveraged breakthroughs in technology. So, why do you think we're a little bit behind in this one?
Yeah, the three areas really quickly is actually how the Bible was written. It was in
Mm,
papyrus and it was given to the public at that time in the early church. And so in the early church, they were able to communicate the gospel in practical ways using papyrus. And that leads us to the Gutenberg press, where the Bible was actually printed in massive information to all of society. And we were able to have what we have now in the context of our world for a society with government or hospitals or even modern day learning actually grew from the Gutenberg press. And I call it the Zuckerberg era now, Bill,
right.
where we live in this digital world where we can either build our own brands or we can build a Jesus brand instead. And so in the book, we encourage digital practices of not just, making our own selves famous per se, but to how to make Jesus famous and communicate the gospel in a practical way online.
Yeah, I really love that because I think there are many, maybe even watching this, who think, technology is all bad. But we have
Mhm.
seen when Christ is infused in breakthroughs through technology, it actually spreads the gospel in powerful ways. I mean, the first printed book really was the Bible. So, how can people
Yeah.
leverage technology today actually as a tool for discipleship?
Yeah, that's very well said. And so we break it up into three parts, but the first part is to understand the design behind digital technologies, usually around social media that is created for us to engage and consume. And so the average person online is actually consuming between 200 to 300 pages of a book every day. And so to be able to communicate the gospel online is good storytelling. So it's our testimonies, it's how Jesus walks with us, but at the same time, moderating and redeeming our own personal practices. So we encourage like a digital Sabbath.
Hmm, that's
And
good.
this is a 24-hour period of time where you disconnect from digital spaces to reconnect with God because it's in our solitude and quietness where we hear the whispers of God. And that's where truth comes in. So the danger of digital practices that are unregulated or unmoderated is that not all information is equal, number one. Number two, not
Mm,
all information leads to truth,
right,
leads to well being. And
right.
we believe as followers of Jesus that truth is a person named Jesus, and that only happens in relationship. So we suggest that digital Sabbath, digital free zones in the home. Make sure if you are listening to this and you're a parent or a pastor to encourage meals at the dinner table because that's where thriving conversations and relationship tends to increase when we're not distracted from digital devices. And because unfortunately, this wants to isolate me rather than reconnect face to face in relationship.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think one of the things I love about your book too is that I think a lot of people are actually unaware. Like they would say, well, I
Mm.
don't even know if this is a problem. So you've included a survey. Talk to me about why you felt it was important to be really that practical, because it is a really practical book.
Yeah, we wanted not to have a philosophy context. We wanted
Hmm.
necessarily to be practical of how to redeem digital spaces and redeem our own digital practices so we can be Jesus online. And that's true, Bill. That was our echo, is that we found that when we surveyed 1,500 people, so roughly 400 parents, 400 pastors and leaders, and the rest were youth and young adults, is there was a tendency to be unaware of how much information they were consuming online. And so we offered an online assessment. It's actually the first assessment in North America that is a spiritual, digitalized assessment to gravitate to understand digital practices. There's digital addiction or phone addiction assessments out there, but this is the first faith based practice. And the goal was to go through this in about 3 minute survey, and it would give us an infographic based on your real time practices of how to moderate, regulate, and redeem digital practices as followers of Jesus.
Well, that is so powerful. And so, yeah, first of all, thank you for your friendship. I mean, I love you as a
Mhm.
person. You're an amazing human being.
Yeah,
But also, thank you for
like,
writing. Thank you for writing this. I think it's such a helpful tool, and so many need to become aware of not only the dangers but also the possibilities and how to manage that. So, thank you so much for being with us here today.
yeah, thank you, Bill, and thank you, team, for allowing me to just share a little bit. And if there's any questions, feel free to connect with me anytime.
Okay, thank you. Well, if you would like more information on this great book, Infobesity, you can go to our website at 700club.ca.